Now we're going to talk about ISO. To adjust the ISO in your camera, you're going to press the ISO button on the top of your camera right behind the scroll wheel, and then you'll use that scroll wheel to scroll through the various options. On the lower end, say 200, your image is darker. That's because your sensor is being set to be less sensitive to light. But as you scroll through the options and get all the way up to say 3200, your image is going to get progressively brighter. That's because your sensor is being told to be more sensitive to light. Now, ISO is a great way to set the exposure of your camera, but there is a downside to it. The higher your ISO, say 1200 and above really, you're going to start to introduce digital noise into your image. You can think of noise as sensor-generated distortion, basically artifacts that are created by really pushing the camera to try and discover detail in low light situations. Noise is a very important issue to look out for. But the problem is it can be very hard to see on a screen this size. However, you'll definitely notice it once you get into the post-production process, and you'll notice it even more when your film's being played on the big screen. Noise also tends to show itself pretty dramatically if you decide to scale in post. In general, noise creates a loss of detail, which makes an image muddier. And a muddier image is not a pleasing image because you want detail in your shots. As a general rule of thumb, I would stay below 1200 on the ISO. The base ISO, or the ISO at which the camera is said to perform best, is 800 for the GH4, but in my opinion, if you have access to lights, you'd be better served pumping lights into your room, lowering the ISO of your camera, and then adjusting those lights to regain that exposure that you've lost, thus eliminating some of the noise that you might get from the camera, which will result in a cleaner image overall.